Okay, welcome to the pregame.
We have to make Andrew proud tonight.
Let's go. 12 Ounce Sports is live on Facebook. According I just got a notification. There we go. So we're up there. Yep, there you go. Yep.
I'm not seeing
Let's
it.
go. 12 Ounce Sports is live on Facebook.
Oh, there you are.
Yep. Notification. There we go.
It looks
So
like
we're up there.
I think your Facebook is faster than mine, which doesn't make sense.
All right, but we're on. So if you want to.
What are you excited to talk about this week?
Well, obviously I was excited about my Rangers 2-game winning streak between the last show and this show, but unfortunately not doing so well lately. And you know what? It's really kind of reminds you how important Hank was. It's sort of almost the way people don't realize how important Eli was by never missing a game. Same thing with, Lundqvist. You always knew he'd be there in the goal, and he rarely had really bad games. So I think that's probably the thing that people don't put so much value on players who play all the time. And I think sometimes when you see an Eli not there anymore or a Lundqvist, you really realize how important it is.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't know. The last 2 years, you probably had a couple of stories about Lundqvist that were like, oh, he's like almost an aging, almost disruptive veteran. Like he's almost disruptive. He was almost too serious.
Yeah.
And now without him, it's obvious that there's really a lack of leadership in the room. I think they're really missing that.
Well, actually, the seed never really goes to a goalie. But if it was going to a goalie, it would be Lundqvist.
Absolutely. I think that's why they never had a captain for the last 6 or 7 years. They haven't had captains since they let go of Ryan McDonough.
Well, and the other thing too is you think about in hockey, that one person. It's like football, the quarterback. You need the other 10 players, but it's a quarterback's league. In hockey, goalie is such an important position because you need that goalie to make that one save in the game on a breakaway or, just come up big at different times. You think about Vegas, how good they are in their infancy now as a franchise. Marc-Andre Fleury was just a great goalie that they got.
That was a huge pickup off the expansion draft, and and actually Fleury just got put on COVID protocol this week. Actually, today I think. But it just makes you think about the Seattle Kraken. And because you've got the expansion draft coming up after this year, and I think a lot of GMs are worried about what happened in Las Vegas. But I do think it's time to get officially started here.
Let's go. Here we go.
So the appetizer has been eaten. Time for the main course.
Here we go. The main event.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned in to The Rome Show. Tonight's starting lineup over on mic number 2, but number 1 in your hearts. You've got the original Rocky Romanella.
Thank you very much. Sitting in for Romo himself.
That's right. And sitting in at mic number 2, usually on mic number 1, the younger version, Rocky Romanella.
There we go. We got no Andrew Romanella though. We got no Romo.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, the Rome Show is brought to you by 12 Ounce Sports. You can find us on 12 Ounce Sports Live, Zingo TV, channel 761, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter Live. Feel free to follow along on Facebook.com/12 Ounce Sports. Join us in the chat or get interactive and text us at 609-401-1007. Big Rocky Romanella. We have a very exciting show. We're talking baseball, we are talking hockey, and we might even touch on some youth sports coming back into play this spring.
Yeah, I think that's a great topic there. Nico just got on a team, our oldest grandson. So, I think back to when you guys were playing and the girls were cheerleading and dance competitions. And I think, youth sports can be such a, wonderful time in a child's career, but it could also be a nightmare if you're the kid on the field and you got the parent that's ranting and raving, screaming, and making a fool of themselves. So
I tell you what, there are a lot of first-round draft picks getting started in T-ball this spring.
Absolutely,
so coaches beware, parents beware, and it would be tough for me to go any longer without playing this for Andrew. So we'll talk a little youth sports as we get through. Obviously, we've got a fan of the show and a sponsor of the show with the Baseball United Foundation helping us out there. So I think it's a good time to talk some youth sports, but we actually get to talk some real life sports today, and the Major League Baseball season is off and running. Pitchers and catchers have been reported. Spring training is fired up. We've got games being played.
Got my Mets hat on.
That's right. We've got our Mets hat on. I don't know if you saw it yesterday, but the Mets actually in practiced their World Series
I
celebration.
can't believe they did that. I was so disappointed.
Why?
If you're going to go try to visualize, I guess what they're trying to visualize is, you know what's supposed to happen. Why don't you visualize not going for the outside pitch? Don't expand the strike zone. Why don't you visualize that? Practice. I don't think I'd practice the World Series celebration until you get to get closer to the.
No, yeah, you're probably right. But I kind of like it. Like, I'm pretty sure when Mike Keenan came to New York, I think one of the first things he did was show the Rangers a ticket tape for 8.
Well, that's one thing, but practicing.
Yeah, well, that's true. I guess.
Then they go out there and say, "Okay, let's start throwing confetti. We're going to practice and take your tape."
Yeah, they didn't jump off the bench and throw their gloves and sticks in the air.
And by the way,
at each other.
Yeah, and by the way, there's no secret, so it's not like you can practice it just yourselves. I mean, once you did that, everybody in the league knows, every sports fan knows. I would just quietly do the best job you can and try to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, well, I guess that's a little bit more conservative.
Yeah. Yeah, don't act like you got there if you haven't gotten there yet. So
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm just happy they're having fun.
Yeah,
it's a young team. It's a young team, and there's a couple young teams in the 2 divisions that we're reviewing today. So at the end of last week's show, Andrew and I talked about giving a quick preview to every single division in the league. And so we're starting in the AL Central and the NL Central this week, and probably 2 very opposite divisions, right? You've got one that looks to be very much rebuilding, most likely like a 1 playoff team in the NL Central, and then you've got an AL Central where you do have a lot of young talent, especially in the White Sox. And you've got you probably have 2, 3, maybe 4 teams that could push for a playoff spot out of that division. So very exciting stuff coming out of the Central States in the Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's, it's sort of been a transition, right? Because Cleveland has been the perennial team to beat, and Minnesota. But I mean, the White Sox, have a really good young team. Although I'm not enamored with this whole La Russa coming back and. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that,
I don't necessarily like the Tony La Russa hire either. Like, to me, it's just he's done it. Like, he did it before. He's done it. We get it. Like, is that really the best you could go find for the team that you have? I mean, you have a star in Jose Abreu. I mean, that is the cornerstone of your offense, the cornerstone of your franchise right now. Everything was built around him. And Tony La Russa is the guy that's going to take the young buzz and bring it to the World Series.
And I think back to some of these coaches, like a Joe Gibbs, for example, great run in Washington, comes back that last time. Not really. Vince Lombardi, rest of his soul, comes back into what he came to the Redskins as well after his Green Bay run. I don't know. You just can't put the band back together again. And I think sometimes what happens is people try to recreate. La Russa's been out of the game, managing day to day for a while. It's a grind, as you know. It's 162 games. I don't know. I mean, I just think that I think I know why they're doing it. I know, the owner loves them, and I think they feel like it's a young team. He'll give them that leadership. But hey, if you want it, the editorial doesn't necessarily represent the view of the station. I would say I'd go get the guy out of Baltimore who I loved for all those years. Buck
Showalter?
Yeah, I was hoping the Mets would get Buck Showalter.
I was ready to trade. I was trading Daniel Murphy and Terry Collins for Buck Showalter.
Yeah, I mean, Buck Showalter, is a great. Oh no, another goal. We got to shut this game off.
Yeah.
It's like this guy Gorgiev. Man, wait,
listen. The people are going to get hockey with Rockies.
Yeah,
so we can talk about the Rangers in a little bit, but. I think the other big thing about the White Sox is that they're highlighted by a very, very good like almost great Dallas Keuchel as your number one pitcher.
Yeah.
So they're good on the hill. They've got young talent, and I think there's a lot of buzz around Lucas Giolito and Dallas Keuchel, and then the rest of their rotation is very strong. So the buzz out of Chi-Town is not the Cubbies.
No,
It is the White Sox,
The White
and then so if we stay in the AL Central, to me, I've got the White Sox winning the division. I think that, and I know that, Andrew, the host of this show, is high on the Minnesota Twins.
Well, the Twins are always there. I mean, and they always find a way to play competitive baseball. So I would say the Twins could be the sleeper there, or the ones that, hey, everyone's looking at the White Sox, and then kind of you wake up one day and it's like, wow, the Twins are here, they're knocking on the door, and for a young team, having someone like the White Sox, Twins, or even, don't count out Terry Francona. I mean, he's a great manager, so I mean, he could, no one's expecting anything out of him. Sometimes those are the years you have your best year because no one expects you to win. So I would say those two teams could put enough pressure on the White Sox being so young, and then they could wake up and say, wow, they just didn't handle the pressure well, that's all.
Yeah, definitely, and I think the Twins Twins have won the division now 2 years in a row, so it's either, theirs to hold on to or theirs to lose. And then I think you make a good point about the Indians because, the loss of Lindor and Carrasco to the Mets, a lot of people could say like that might even crush the Indians, almost send them back into a rebuild, if you will, or a retool, whatever you want to call it. But I think what you said too, I think, the rest of their lineup has been there. Terry Francona knows what it takes, and they got Ahmed Rosario and Andres Jimenez back, but I mean they're really not Lindor.
No.
But again, like, is that I don't think that they were losing because of Lindor. Like, he was a good personality. It's not like it's addition by subtraction, but does it change the way Cleveland attacks the lineup? Do they play a little bit more small ball? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see there.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree.
The Royals,
got a good young team. The Royals, they got some good draft picks.
This is the most buzz we've heard out of the Royals since 2015.
Yeah, that's right. Since we played in the World Series.
Since they were in the World Series, this is probably the most buzz we've heard out of Kansas City, which is exciting, for the entire division. And then when you look at the Tigers, I think the biggest news out of the Tigers is hiring the manager, what's his face from Houston.
Oh yeah. He got I could see him. Yeah, he got hired back. That's right. He got a 1 year suspension. He was friends with Brady Van Wagenen. That was
he was a big Brody guy.
Yeah, Brody guy. I should say, not Brady. Brody. Yeah, that was his buddy from Stanford, I guess, together.
Yeah, that's right. So it's going to be interesting to see, how that turns around in Detroit. It's really annoying me that I'm just having a complete road a blank right here, brain fart on the manager's name. But I'll figure it out. But all in all, the AL Central is very strong.
It's one of the years that you're competitive, right? You have three teams that should be competitive. The Royals could surprise some people, so it could be a fun division. I think the same is happening in the NL Central if you think about it, right?
AJ Hinch. Oh, God.
That's a Hinch. There you go.
Oh, gosh, I can't believe I did that.
So I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the NL Central is very similar too. I mean, you've got you got the Cardinals that look like they should be the team, but then you never count out the Cubs.
How are we doing research on the NL Central today? And I don't know, man. I think everyone's projected to be under 500 in that division.
Well, it's because they'll play each other a lot.
I mean, the Brewers are they're putting everything on Christian Yelich.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's if Yelich has a good year, we'll have a good year.
Yeah.
Right? The Cubbies the Cubs, it's either like, hey, we got to tear this thing down and start over again, or and maybe the Chris Bryant years are over.
Yeah, but you got Rizzo and Bryant are still two very, very good ball players. There's no doubt about that. They got a pretty good pitching staff still. I'm picking the Cardinals because you gotta love Arenado. I love that
always
guy.
pick that's another team. They're putting all their eggs in one basket there.
Well, and Goldschmidt's on first. Think about that. Goldschmidt bats second. Arenado bats third.
So what do you think?
So not a bad lineup there.
So when you're looking at Nolan Arenado, you're coming out of Denver. You're mile high. Your ball flies everywhere, and then you go into St. Louis, which is the least friendly hitters ballpark in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think he's just a good ball player. I mean, he's in my top 4 or 5 baseball players.
You've been trying to get Nolan Arenado
Oh
on
my
the Mets
God.
for years.
Yeah, I was going to trade everybody. Take any here, just pick who you want, man. The kid he's perennial Gold Glove, plays great third base. You never hear a peep out of him. You would think he's a great teammate. And then he plays baseball. I mean, he is the youngest throwback guy. Trout's a lot like that too. You don't hear much out of Trout. He just plays baseball every day. You got to love people like that. So I think St. Louis has a really good shot this year. But look, the Cubs have been there, so they know how to win, and I think they know how to muster the troops together. I think that you got to count on them. The Brewers the same way. I mean, they got to. So I think both. It's interesting when you look at both Central divisions, whether it's the AL or NL. They both got opportunities to have a slugfest there, where they're all kind of beating up. It's kind of like the the ACC in basketball. They're all beating each other.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like the White Sox, Twins, Indians. They'll probably race to like 95, 100 wins, and the Brewers, Cubs, and Cardinals. They'll probably be racing to about.
Because when they play like 16 games.
They'll probably be racing to about 80 wins.
Yeah, don't they have to play each other 16 times?
Yeah, they just. I mean, you just play each other. I don't know if baseball is going to change the season at all. I don't think they are. But it is interesting that when you look at the Brewers and Cubs, you're right. Like, they're really just resting on who they have. And the Cardinals are the only team that really made any big moves in the offseason.
Hey, Molina's still there. Yadier's still there.
So
I'm still one of the best catchers, man. You got to give him.
So the Rome Show actually tweeted. By the way, if you want to chime in, find us on Facebook Live, facebook.com/SquallDownSports. Hit us up in the comments section, or feel free to text the show phone at 609-401-1007. But the Rome Show, Andrew, actually posted a good picture since Yadier Molina came into the league till 2020, it was the top 5 teams with the least amount of stolen bases against. And so teams 2 through 5 were right around 1,000 stolen bases. 834 stolen bases for the Cardinals. Like, he is the only reason no one can steal a base against the Cardinals. It's amazing.
Well, he still got that great arm down to first base behind the runner. So he's always, he's picked off enough people over his career that he at least makes you think about it. So, and he works with the pitchers. I mean, I think the thing that was always the best part of him was early on, I saw an interview where he said that his first year or two with the Cardinals, they said to him, "We don't care if you hit a lick. Your job is to be the best catcher you can be, both managing the pitchers, managing the game, as well as being defensively." And you know what? He stuck to it. He obviously got good as a catcher, and then just started hitting, and then put it all together. I mean, I still remember that.
It's interesting.
Cardinals Mets playoff game, man. I still see.
Are you talking 06? Carlos Beltran looking at it.
He's still looking at it. He's still looking at it. I mean, man, what the heck was he looking? Swing it already, right?
It's a really good point out of you from a catching standpoint, because I feel like the perennial catcher in an organization is really a lost art. Right, just think about your baseball history, and I feel like every single baseball fan could probably name the same 6 to 10 catchers that are in the top 10. So you're gonna say Yadier Molina, Mike Piazza, Jorge Posada,
Johnny Bench.
Then you're gonna go Yogi Berra,
Thurman Munson.
Yeah.
Thurman
and you're gonna go Pudge Rodriguez,
Elston Howard for the Yankees. I mean, you got some catchers. I mean, Carlton Fisk. I mean,
but look at how far back you got to go for that. Like, it doesn't happen today.
No, I mean, think about it. There was an era when they were, when catching was such a premium, right? You had Bench, you had Fisk. You had those. They were all playing about the same time. So I mean, Jerry Grody for the Mets, number 15. I mean, Jerry Grody was a great catcher for the Mets. I mean, 69 World Series. He was the catcher, and J.C. Martin was the backup. I mean, and you never worried about catchers, and if you think about if what I don't understand is if you're placing a premium, which everybody does on pitching, you can't have enough pitchers, and you got to be, well then, how many games has the Yankees lost because
Gary Sanchez
behind the plate?
Yeah.
I mean, I know, look, he's a great hitter, he's a good hitter, whatever. The point though is if that's the premium, I mean, if pitching is the premium, then you got to be strong up the middle. And it starts with the catcher, then center fielder, then it's second base and shortstop, second base. Pick up. But I just don't understand why people don't place a premium. They always worry about the catcher hitting. That's the least of your worries.
I agree with you. I don't understand it. I mean, that's the person you need. The pitcher needs that guy.
Yeah.
And if everything starts on the hill, we're not gonna. Everyone knows that. If you're a baseball fan, you
Right.
know it starts on the hill, right? Jeff Trundy every day starts and ends on the hill. If the guy's having a bad day, we're probably gonna have a bad day.
Yeah. Well, that and unless you're DeGrom, who's calling his own game, basically.
Yeah.
Then the pitcher needs a good catcher. So I think that that's a premium spot in baseball. I think it's sometimes overlooked, and I also think that when you look at like the Cardinals, I think signing Molina back, he was a free agent, nobody really wanted him. But you know what? I think with that team, he's gonna make the difference. He's gonna help that pitching staff out a little bit. And I think that's such an important position. That's all.
I wonder if let's say if the NL goes to a DH,
Mm-hmm.
does the catcher get more emphasis? Now you don't see it that much in the AL, right? Because the AL's had a DH for years, so you could say, well, if it's not happening in the AL, it's not really going to change. But is that something that general managers should be looking at? Because in my opinion, I agree with you. I'd be all over the catcher. Like, to me, a catcher is almost like a goalie. Obviously, he's not like the pitcher's obviously more like the goalie because it's the most important position on the ice, right? It's the most important position on the field. But to your point, if the catcher becomes that important to a pitching staff, right, and I get a DH and I'm in the NL, why don't I just bat my catcher ninth?
Well,
And I'm probably going to get better at what's he going to do? Bat 250? No different than a pitcher who's going to bat 125. I mean, you're still in a better position.
Oh, you're in a better position. And the other thing is, he's the field general. So if you think about it, if take each of your sports. So if to win a World Series, you got to have pitching.
Yeah.
It's a short series, you got to have pitching, right? Okay, because everybody's hitting when you get to that point. You wouldn't get there without hitting, right? So if pitching is the premium, the way in football you got down to the two great quarterbacks, right? Mahomes and Brady, all right? So it's a quarterback league, all right? And then in hockey, you're going to win the playoffs if you have a hot goalie. If your goalie gets hot, you're going to win. So if you understand that, then everything you do should be then to help that position, right? It should be to say, okay, well then I got to have a good pitching staff, or I got to have a good quarterback. If my quarterback isn't in the top five, I better surround him with good people.
That's right.
I just don't understand like the mechanics of what a general manager goes through when he's building or she's building their team, because now we have a general manager in
Miami.
yeah, which is great to see. The point is though, if you understand that, if you're building your team at work, you're looking to complement each other. You're looking to build. If you have people who are really good at this, well, then the next you want people that are good at that. I just don't understand how these general managers, the decisions that they make, when it comes to filling out a roster.
Yeah, baseball's probably the toughest to decipher. In hockey, it's pretty. You start with the goaltender, you work your way out, right? Goaltender, defenseman, centerman, like those are your top three, right? That's where you're going, right? In basketball, it's probably, you're just pure best athlete. Yeah, at this point.
Yeah.
Baseball, you're starting with pitching, but like when you see what the general managers are doing from a rebuilding standpoint, everything has to do with the bat. And I wonder, like, why does the catcher need to be a power hitter?
Yeah. No, well, I think the reason why, first of all, baseball suffers from too many games.
Well, yeah.
So what happens is when you have 162 games.
The Rome Show's big proponents of lowering.
Yeah, you gotta get it's way.
We want to bring it down.
Yeah, you gotta. So that's number one. So what happens then is, classic example. I'm sure Yankee fans out there won't agree with me. The Yankees are built to win 100 games, to sell out the stadium, and to have revenue. They're not built to win a World Series.
Yes.
Right. Now, ironically, if the Yankees got into the playoffs like they do every year, and then tapped the Mets on the shoulder and said, okay, it's a tag team, for each city gets a tag team, right? The White Sox and the Cubs, we're going to play, that's the tag team. But, Angels and the Dodgers. Well, for us, it's the Yankees and the Mets. If the Yankees get into the playoffs with 100 wins and tag the Mets, they got a better chance of winning the World Series with the Met team in the playoffs, because you're going to see DeGrom.
Yeah.
right? You're gonna see, now you're gonna see Strowman, but you're gonna see, well, if he's playing, he's hurt now, Carrasco. You're gonna see, if when Syndergaard was at his best, I mean, you're gonna see a good rotation. So that's, to me, they're not built. They're built because the season's so long and you need revenue, so you gotta win 100 games.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to win 100 games and you got to hit 1 million home runs.
Right, because that's what brings the fans in.
You got to hit 1 million home runs. Yeah. So are you building a team to sell tickets, or are you building a team to win the World Series? And I would argue that they are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And case in point, the New York Knicks. I mean, they're going to sell out regardless. So
Right.
Anyway, yeah. So I think we are up against our first break.
Okay, now let's see. I got to put my glass on because I'm also what am I?
That's right. So this is the Rome Show with the Rockies. You give me a point when we go officially to commercial.
All right, right now, here we go. I'm going to off, on, and mute.
I have a delay. Is it?
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sports book, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
So you just tell me when it's done on there, and I'll start playing music.
Please.
That was a good start, I think.
What's the next thing?
Hockey with Rockies.
Okay, here we go. What are we doing? Not yet.
What is it on MyBookie?
At Amazon.
Okay. What up?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rome Show. My name's Rocky Romanella, joined by Rocky Romanella. We are filling in for Andrew Romanella tonight, who is on assignment with the FDU Fairleigh Dickinson University Devils tonight. We are coming to you live from the 360 Management Studios. We're brought to you by 12 Ounce Sports. You can find us on 12ouncesports.com. Zingo TV, channel 761, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, live. Follow along, facebook.com/12ouncesports. Comment on us, join us in the chat. Or you could text us, 609-401-1007. So, before we get into the Hockey with Rocky segment, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think Andrew would rate our performance right now?
Yeah, a little choppy in the beginning. We got to find our sea legs, as they say. Got to produce. I got notes all over from Andrew on this whole. He seamlessly does it. Obviously, he's a natural at this. We're working at it very hard.
He's a very good producer of the show. I almost wanted to come with a segment like, what would Andrew say? Like, I almost want to stop every sentence. I would be like, what would Andrew would say to that?
Yeah.
He'd probably say something like 100%.
Yeah.
Or
I'm super stoked about this.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked. Yes.
Over under, Andrew says super stoked at least 16 to 25 times a show. And I'm surprised, and I'm kind of disappointed, and maybe he'll come up over the course of the next 35 minutes or so, but I'm a little upset that the Cyclone has not chimed in on Andrew's absence today. So we'll see if that comes through. But the best segment of the show is about to start. Now, inside the glass, Hockey with Rockies. There's two.
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Hockey with Rocky. My name's Sam Rosen. Just kidding. My name's Rocky Romanella.
Sam Rosen.
We are Hockey with Rocky is brought to you by Covenant House, New Jersey. On behalf of Ken the Cyclone Dubas, Covenant House, New Jersey provides comprehensive residential care and related services to help New Jersey's youth who have suffered from abuse, neglect, abandonment, homelessness, and human trafficking build better lives for themselves. That is good. A lot on the hockey docket tonight, Mr. Romanella. And I am going to start with the biggest announcement out of the NHL this week, and that is that they just inked a 7-year broadcast deal with ESPN. So the NHL is returning to ESPN. Very, very exciting news. What do you think?
I think that's great. I think it's going to just bring hockey more prominently, out there in the media side of things. They've always been sort of that fourth sport. Although many more people watch hockey or are hockey fans than I think that people realize.
So it's interesting. So I actually had the opportunity to see John Butchergross speak a couple years ago at the college hockey coaches convention. It was funny, and at the time everyone was really upset because for years and still to this day the NCAA National Championship is broadcast on ESPN.
Yes.
So when Butchergross was talking, it was the first year that ESPN had made the decision to not air the national championship on ESPN, but they were going to air it on ESPN2.
Oh, okay.
And so Butchergross was up there like, hey, it's not that big a deal. And he talked about viewership, and he said that, ESPN2 had, as many, I think it was around 70 to 90 million viewers as NBC Sports at the time. And so it was very interesting. Then he said, you have to understand like what hockey can do for a network. And so NBC, he was saying, took the exact same blueprint that ESPN took early on and said, hey, we want to build up this ESPN2 segment with, at that time it was hockey, it was the X Games. It was kind of some of the outside the box sports. And so ESPN2 used hockey to grow the viewership and to grow the followership. And that's what Butchergross saying was NBC was doing in very similar fashion, and I would argue very successful fashion. I think that, since the 06, I think it was the 06 strike with the new deal with NBC, I think hockey is probably better broadcast than it's ever been.
Well, it's great. People don't realize it's a great spectator sport. I mean, even if you don't understand some of the nuances or some of the rules, people, always, offside or icing sometimes seems a little difficult to follow for people. But at the end of the day, it's such a fast sport. I mean, you've got to pay attention because the pucks flying are all over the place. It's become although lately it's a little bit more of the old school hockey, but the fights But I will say it is when you see a person skate the way Panera skates or Crosby
Or Kreider.
I mean, he's just fast on lots up and down. But it is amazing, or defensemen skating backwards, crossing over. It is impressive.
Yeah, the speed of the game is outstanding, and I think the loyalty of the fan is very unique. And so obviously the fan base isn't as big, but what you have is very loyal fans. And so one of the things that both the NHL and ESPN are very excited about is the flexibility from a streaming standpoint that they're going to do. So the majority, like every game will be available on ESPN Plus. And if you go to the NHL.TV network, so right now if I wanted to watch every game of the NHL, it's $100 for NHL.TV. That's all going to be funneled through ESPN Plus now, which already has 12 million subscribers. It's also going to be simulcasted through Hulu, which already has 39.4 million subscribers. And by the way, this is the Walt Disney Company, and so most of these people all have Disney Plus. They have Hulu, they have ESPN, so you're getting access to people and places across the world. So the outreach from a game standpoint is outstanding. And, for my generation of hockey fan, who was ages, call it 5 to 25 or 10 to 20 when we were growing up watching hockey. I mean, the return of NHL tonight might be one of the most exciting parts of this deal.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool to get back to that, that whole genre of, watching that. But I think the other thing that's pretty interesting is that, it is a global sport. People, sometimes forget that. And I mean, if you look at who's on the ice, at one time, it was basically it was Canadian and then American supplemented. Today, it's Canadian. It's U.S. players. It's Swedish players. It's European players. It's Russia, Czech Republic. So if you think about it for a second, I mean, it is one of the most global sports. I think the thing that what I find the most impressive though is think the aerobic shape that these hockey players are in. I mean, basketball is one of those sports that you're watching a basketball player and you're impressed with their, kind of stamina. But it's a four period. These guys are skating for 20 minutes at a time, and then when they go into double, triple overtime, it's like two full games. How the hell they're alive?
I know it's out of control, and you bring up a good point about the global aspect of the game. And so, like a lot of the game was originally, it was a lot of Canadian and a lot of actually probably Russian was the majority, and now. So last Saturday was Hockey Day in America, and there was more American-born hockey players playing Hockey Day in America than ever before. About 33 to 34% of the league has actually played college hockey at the NCAA level, which is higher than it's ever been before. And as you see the makeup of the team, the blend of European players is so much more than just so you still have your Russian players, but the influx of Swedish and Finnish players has been incredible. And I think I would argue that, and I don't have any stats to back this up, but just from being around it a little bit, I would argue that the Swedish-born player is one of the most up and coming, known as great skaters, very smart defensively, but also very skilled. But their skating and their defense, regardless of skill, is probably the most celebrated aspect of that game.
No, and you know what? They're students of the game, right? I mean, it's much more of a strategic game than as well tactically, obviously executing. But it's a fun sport to watch, and obviously I'm a Ranger fan with so much optimism with the youth and the speed and their talent. But like anything else, I mean, it takes. It'd be interesting to see what we talked about this a few weeks ago with Quinn. Be interesting to see what happens. I mean, coaching is very important in hockey because it's how you formulate the lines, it's how you get the people to mesh. It's a thing, and I think that's what's coaching is each sport coaching is a little bit different. Like in baseball, for example, at 162 games. You know what? You're just hoping in 162 games the coach doesn't blow things up. But the managing becomes important in the playoffs. Basketball. Who's telling LeBron James?
I don't know what a basketball coach does,
especially on a team like that. I mean, who's telling KD and the rest of these guys what to do?
I don't know.
So, but
and they're probably the most active coaches on the sideline in the middle of the game that I see, and I don't know. I actually don't know what they're looking at.
Well, because the idea of basketball or rebuilding is you kind of do what the Knicks are doing now to be relevant, and then you figure out what three guys are going to get together, on a weekend, talk about who wants to be on what teams, and then they all show up on one team together. So it's like, it's like in the schoolyard, you're picking your team. Oh, I got the first guy, I got LeBron. You got him. I got. Next thing you know, it's So, and plus, basketball to me is also the sport that you're just playing it because you have to play it. Just get, you know who's going to be in the playoffs. You know who the top.
No, you make a great point about the coaching staff, and that's what came out of Montreal a couple weeks ago. When they fired Claude Julien, it was, hey, listen, the guys just they weren't responding.
Right.
And so once they're not responding, and you think that you're a playoff team, you have to make the change. And so, ironically enough, Montreal Canadiens, who at the time were in the fifth seed in the North Division and outside the playoffs, has since now separated themselves from the Canucks and now are atop. They're in the fourth spot now, looking at a playoff spot. And so, is that a good coaching change? The Calgary Flames, just made a coaching change themselves and brought in Stanley Cup champion head coach from the Kings, Darryl Sutter. And so it's going to be interesting to see, because I think a lot of people are looking at the Flames as underperforming right now, especially compared to Vancouver and Winnipeg. I think it's a very underperforming team right now. So they just made a coaching change. The next one that everyone's expecting to happen is in Columbus. And it's interesting. you look at, and I had this prepared for today, I've got it called the 6-point line.
Ah,
And it's a good segue because the teams we're talking about are right at the 6-point line. So in every single division, you're starting to see separation. So you're anywhere between 20 to 27 games into the season. I think the North Division has the most. Vancouver's actually played 30 games, but they've had the least amount of COVID cases in Canada, so they've played the most games. So you're just about halfway through the shortened season, and you're really starting to see the separation. And the separation is 6 points, and it's either between the 4th and the 5th, or the 5th and the 6th spot. So when you're looking at the Central, right, and this is the division where you knew Tampa Bay was going to be a top, and them in Carolina. The surprise team there, we talked about it last week, is Florida. And the second surprise team there is Chicago, and the underperforming team, 6 points out of a playoff spot, is the Columbus Blue Jackets.
yeah, no.
And so if Columbus can't turn it around, I don't know. I don't think John Tortorella makes it.
Well, think about, was it 3 or 4 years ago when Pittsburgh made the change?
Yep,
right?
that's right.
And
And then they went back-to-back cups.
yeah, I mean, now does that mean the coach who was coaching at that time was a bad coach? No. It's just that, hockey's one of those sports that when the coach makes a difference, and that change kind of wakes people up. Because remember, you're moving, once you start that starting lineup on baseball, that's the lineup.
Yeah.
Right? In hockey, I mean, that lineup they go to shorten the benches.
Yep.
So those are all decisions. It's one of the few sports that the coaches as you know, coaching, you're making decisions throughout the game.
That's right.
You're shortening the bench, you're putting this player out, you're
Changing lines, matching lines.
Right. So it's the coach is more involved in actually what's happening on the field of play versus basketball or college basketball probably is a little bit different because a good coach knows when to call the timeout, to break the momentum, do those kinds of things.
We were playing more of a team game there too.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, I think that's a great point with Mike Sullivan out of Pittsburgh. I mean, they made the change mid-year, turned it around, and next thing you know, they're in the Stanley Cup, winning back-to-back cups. And by the way, go no further than the St. Louis Blues,
yeah.
who 2 years ago make the change. They're in dead last coming out of January, and then they go win the Stanley Cup. Same story. And so if Montreal finds themselves in a Scotiabank North Division final going into looking at the Stanley Cup, you're like, wow, that's a great in-season coaching change there. And by the way, there's a 5-point difference between 4 and 5, and that's Vancouver and Montreal. So not quite the 6-point line, but you're looking at Calgary right there at 6 points away. So I don't know if that changes too much there. And then you go into the Mass Mutual East, which everyone is arguably the toughest division to play in. Right, and you're looking at the 5th, number 5, outside looking in, Philadelphia Flyers at 29 points, one behind the Bruins, and then your next closest team is the Rangers, 7 points away. So that's a 5-team, that's shaping up to be a 5-team race, which, by the way, going into the season, I think everyone was predicting that, and you were kind of hoping the Rangers were going to turn it around.
Yeah.
And in reality, I think a lot of people thought it was going to be 6 teams, and, 6-14-4, the Buffalo Sabres are just, no one knows what's happening in Buffalo.
Yeah, that's been a tough run, and to your point when it comes to coaching, I mean, I'm not sure that maybe Quinn, being changed is the right thing to do, but I will say he seems to be a day late and a dollar short when it comes to his goalie selections.
No
right?
doubt.
Right, today he should have played Keenan, right?
Keith
Kincaid, I'm sorry, and he played great the other night. Now he's got Georgie back in here, and then Boy George is having a rough time out of here. So the point though is it's the same with Buffalo. Buffalo's really not as bad. They're not as good as you would want them to be, but they're certainly not as bad as their record. And I think that could be a coaching change there too, because it feels like they don't have direction right now, and so I think that could be because they got talent there. I mean, Eichel.
Well, that's the thing is what's going to happen with Jack Eichel. I mean, you've got Jack Eichel who signed a big time extension 2 years ago. A lot of buzz around the Rangers. I don't think they're not being in a playoff hunt really doesn't make a need for the move. I think it's an off-season move, so it's going to be interesting to see. Jack Eichel just hit the 7 to 10 day DL with a neck injury, so it'll be interesting to see what happens when he comes back, and then if we go out west to the Honda West there, again, now this is an exciting division because from 1 to 6, it's 5 points. So from Vegas in first at 33 points to Arizona in sixth at 28 points, right? That's a 5-point swing. And then there's your 6-point line down to the Anaheim Ducks at 22 points. So again, the divisions are starting to shape up. You're starting to see some races. And it's going to be exciting to see that 6-team race in the West is exciting because it looks like the Kings are starting to get hot. Hanze Kopitar is playing well, and it looks like the Arizona Coyotes are starting to find their legs a little bit too. So I'm excited about the West. I've always been excited about the East. I think the North has always been good, and so it's going to be fun to see some of these races. I think there's probably 2 to 3 more in-season coaching changes that are going to come. And before we wrap up Hockey with Rockies, I've got one question for you that I have that I wanted to ask. What is the biggest difference between the hockey you're watching today and the hockey you were watching 25 years ago?
I think the skill level is unbelievable. Their hands are amazing, these players today. I mean, I think in general, hockey players can always skate. They were always very physical. They were in great shape. They were much more physical back then than today. But these players, their hands, I mean, their ability to lift the puck within a short span just amazes me. Or their ability to, make, pinpoint passes, tape to tape, crossing 2 lines. So I think it's a much more finesse game. It's fun every now and then to see, the boys muck it up a little bit.
The boys will always muck it up, no matter what happens.
But I will say it's a much more finesse game, and the talent level is incredible.
It's through the roof, and the hand-eye coordination I think is better than it's ever been. I mean, they're whipping the pucks is in the air half the time, and they're catching it, and they bat them out of air, so it's pretty crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, that is another week in the books. Hockey with Rocky again. Hockey with Rocky brought to you by Covenant House, New Jersey on behalf of Kent, the Cyclone Dubas. We are donating $12 a month to Covenant House, New Jersey. Join that fight with us. We are going to a quick break. And that's just one click away. All right.
Okay, there we go.
I think we're crushing this.
We're up. I'm going that. We're trying. That's the damn. Can't be like this. Alright, so now we got the last.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money. And we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
At Amazon, we're pretty good.
I think my producer duties might be over here, thankfully. Coordinating buttons and.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Rome Show. My name is Rocky Romanella, joined alongside Rocky Romanella. We are filling in for Andrew Romanella tonight. You can find us on 12ouncesports.com. You can find us on Zingo TV, Channel 761, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter Live. Join the conversation, facebook.com/12ouncesports in the comments section, or text us at 609-401-1007. And we are up at the last 15 minutes here, and this next segment is actually brought to you by one of our newest sponsors, the Baseball United Foundation. Baseball United was founded in 2006 to support the development of amateur baseball programs in Ireland. Over time, the impact has expanded throughout the world. Thanks to passionate volunteers, donors, and sponsors, Baseball United Foundation has provided fundraising and logistical support, coaching, and uniforms to youth baseball players around the world. the Baseball United Foundation is a non-profit organization based in New York, and we are happy to have them as sponsors here at the Rome Show, which leads us into a really, really fun conversation as we got a fun text today from my nephew, your grandson, Nico Rinaldi, joining the T-ball squad, very fired up about it. And so it's fun to talk about. It's nice to see, New Jersey just opened up 50% capacity indoors, right? So I think parents are going to be watching hockey again inside. I think that everything outside is going to be happening. And it seems like we're starting to get back to normal from a youth sports standpoint.
Well, I think we're getting back to normal in the sense of being able to play. Let's hope we don't get back to normal with the way parents act on a
No, that's only going to continue to get worse.
field of play. We ended before the commercial break talking hockey, and I go back to one of the great coaches you had, Jeff Turcotte, who, when you made that team, that travel team, and he looked at us as parents and said, "Hey, look, first of all, you don't need to talk to me, and secondly, don't talk to me after a game because now in 24 hours, if what was so important right after that game to talk to me was still important after 24 hours, then you've got a better chance of getting my attention." And I've used that same thing in business as well, throughout my career that, someone would walk in and say, we have to take care of this situation, or maybe this person, we don't think he or she should be working here. And I would say, hey, you know what? Tomorrow, if it's as important tomorrow as it is right this minute. And I think that's so important with youth sports because every parent's fired up. And I think it stems from a good place, right? It's their child, they're seeing them out there for the first time, they're proud of them, they're excited. But what they don't realize is that, their enthusiasm in some cases is putting way too much pressure on their kids. And I think that rule that Jeff had is an important rule. If 24 hours from now that's still important, come and see me then.
It's such a good rule. Like it's like when you go to write the email when you're pissed off. You're just just don't do it.
Yeah.
And then reread it tomorrow. And
Yeah.
I definitely shouldn't send this.
Yeah, that should be the rule before you retweet something.
Yeah, that's
too.
yeah.
Before you retweet, why don't you take a few minutes, take 24 seconds at least,
Yeah,
do something
before
on
you
the,
post a video.
Yeah, before you start doing that stuff. And I think that because look, this should be the best time in these kids' lives, right? You're kind of participating in sports, they're meeting new people, but you're anxious too, right? And you're anxious throughout your youth career, right? Because you're going. I remember asking you one time when you were, got to that, very elite level of, travel team, and I remember you saying to me, the game's faster and there's no bad lines.
Yeah.
And so every level you get to, there's that anxiety as the player, right? Because things are different, and I think that as parents, you just need to be careful of that. I mean, the kid's not getting drafted at 7 years old, and you're not going to manipulate the system that you're going to do something. And think about all these parents who spend all this money on private lessons and everything else. If they added up all the private lessons, travel teams they were on, they probably paid for college.
Yeah, forget about it. I mean, the amount of money that youth sports takes in is pretty crazy, and you're it's literally, at this point it is an industry. It's more of an industry than it's ever been before, and a lot of the organizations are not necessarily built on moving players in and out. They're really just there to house them,
right,
so that you could collect, and which is an interesting take. And obviously Andrew sees a lot of it being in college athletics. He's very passionate about it. But I think one of the biggest things I learned when I was coaching, I had a team. I coached a team of 12-year-olds one year, and it was a blast. And they weren't the best team. They were definitely playing above where they needed to be, but the parents wanted to be an A instead of B, and so that was important to the parents. And it's funny, we would lose games, and I remember being in the locker room, and they're fine. The kids are fine, right? Because they're having fun playing hockey, right? Like they're having a good time playing hockey. Their skill sets were all improving. If you looked at them day one, they were 10 times better, at the end of the year. So it's a success regardless of win or loss. And it was always funny to me how the kids could handle the loss so much better than the parents, at that age. And it was just funny to see. And you're right. I mean, the pressure they put on it. So you see some kids burn out. And I think I had this conversation with a guy at work a couple weeks ago whose son plays hockey, and he's like, my son plays everything.
Yeah.
My kid plays everything, whether it's lacrosse, it's baseball, it's soccer, like everything. And I think that's probably a lost art as well.
Oh, absolutely, because you always played multiple sports. I mean, that was the best part about being at the Gunnery.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You played three
you
sports.
had to play three sports. It was mandatory.
Right. But here's something for parents, I think, to think about, and coaches to think about. It's not where you are, at a moment in time, or it's not where you are versus your competition. It's where you are from where you started. And so, and I think if you think about that with young athletes, everybody's progressing a little bit different. And there could be a kid on on your team that maybe is, on the bottom third. But when they started, they weren't even on the list, right? And now they've made such great progress. But when you stack them up against your top players, well, they're not even in the conversation. But where they are from where they started is amazing. And that's what you have to celebrate, is the progress.
No doubt, and it's so funny. It's so funny, and I think you bring up a good point, because even when you look at the professional ranks, every year on every team, there are guys from colleges you never heard of, or small schools, or schools that aren't necessarily in the Power 5 conferences. I mean, think about Brandon Jacobs from Southern Illinois. Like, you don't think that that's going to happen. Even like a Victor Cruz from UMass, right? That's not necessarily a school that's producing NFLers. I mean, even go look at how much. I mean, just even look at how much flair was around Joe Flacco coming out of Delaware. which was 1AA.
Well, Jerry Rice, right?
Yeah.
Division one AA, 1A, right? Wasn't he Middle Tennessee or something?
That's right.
So,
Yeah, exactly. So you've got so every year you've got star athletes. And you've got people coming out of high schools that you've never heard of going to Division I programs. You've got people out of middle schools no one's ever heard of going to high school programs. And it works all the way up the ladder. And the point is to your point, regardless of where you're playing, if you're improving
yes.
and you're standing out, someone's going to find you.
Well, someone's going to find you. And the other thing, too, is some of the best players never make it.
That's right.
I mean, sometimes it's timing. I mean, you could be the best high school pitcher. You could be a great pitcher in college, and you get drafted by a team, for example, that's not really looking for pitching, or for some reason you're not connecting with that coach, and the next thing you know, you're just not making it either. So I mean, there's no guarantees in anything you do, and you'd hate to look back after 12, 14, 15 years of playing competitively, dedicating so much of your time in life to this sport, and then you look up one day, and how many kids get burnt out? I mean,
and so not only burnout factor, but I think what you just said is so important. There's a business that's run at the top of this thing.
Right.
So regardless of where you play, you could fall privy to that business, and it has nothing to do with the travel organization you played for when you were 12 years old.
Right. Right.
But it has nothing to do with it, and it, like you said, it could just be a timing thing. So why not just enjoy getting better?
Right.
And if listen, you're going to make it happen for yourself. And you're going to learn how that's going to happen. And listen, there are tips and tricks that you can use to get yourself better exposure, and a little bit more visibility to some of those things. But to go all in at age 5 on one sport and dedicate your life to it, well, I think we've seen two sides of that coin. I think we've seen the burnout. I think there's not one person who's not connected with a family, a friend, who's heard the story of a kid burning out.
Well, burning out, or that kid that it's a Little League game that means absolutely nothing, and you're walking up to the plate, and the coach is gonna take you out now to send up another hitter, or it's so absurd at that point. I mean, because I think the thing that coaches fail to realize is they're leaving an impression, right? And a coach's job, whether it's coaching in business, whether it's coaching in sports, in anything you do, your job is to leave things a little better than you found them. So if every kid is a little bit better because of being on your team, you've been a successful coach.
Successful.
Not about wins and losses all the time.
It can't be.
Especially at that age.
It can't be, and it's so funny too, because the way even the elite organizations, if you want to call them elite, but the way the club organizations and the way the travel organizations are set up now, it's actually, it's a lot about exposure. So you end up playing in showcases, in tournaments, right? So now the game at home in your league really doesn't matter that much.
Right, that's right.
Right? So when you're picking and choosing who's in and who's out, and you're managing it like it's Game 7 of the World Series, right? you just had these people pay for 5 tournaments and showcases that they're going to get out there for. Why don't you take a step back and just let the kids play through the scenario?
You know, I remember when we were living in California and Andrew made the All-Star team. And I said to him, hey, congratulations, you know that? You should be really proud you made the All-Star team. He goes, oh yeah, thanks, Dad. I go, no. You made the All-Star team. You're the only one. That's the all-parents team. Every single kid on that team's father coached. I was the only one that wasn't coaching. I was traveling at the time, right?
Yeah.
So he's the only kid on the team that didn't have a parent coaching. I'm sure there were some other kids thinking, I should have made the team. My father was a coach.
That's right.
So, I mean, who are they kidding with? So that's the stuff that drives me crazy because you're disingenuous. It's not about coaching a team. It's not about developing players. It's about, I want to coach this team because I want to make sure my kid. Well, then if that's the case, why don't you just raise your hand and say that? At the parent meeting, just say, hey, look, just so you know, I'm really not interested in how your kid does. I'm just going to make sure my kid plays first base, pitches whenever they can.
Yeah.
So just at least be genuine instead of being. That's what I liked about Jeff. He didn't have any kids on the team in hockey. You know, everybody was treated the same.
That's right. And that's probably what I still like about football is that it is still so homegrown. Like football is probably still the only sport that truly is homegrown. You play in your town, you play at your high school. You don't necessarily go anywhere else
Yeah, it's not really
to
a
play
travel.
football.
Yeah.
And you let the natural order of standing out kind of take place. Like if you play great, your local paper is going to pick it up. Your local school is going to pick it up. And, you know, you can kind of become that star within your own community. And that's probably the one thing about football prior to the college level that I still really like is that it is very homegrown, right? Outside of Minnesota, Massachusetts, maybe a little New York, growing in New Jersey, right? That high school hockey atmosphere doesn't really happen. Outside of your baseball, pure states like California, Arizona, probably Texas, Florida, like is that high school baseball still really that important? You know, I don't know. High school basketball probably might be the next to football with homegrown talent. So I mean that stuff is cool because that's, you know, you don't have to go outside of the box to like pay all this money. Like, okay, hey, if you're good, the local paper is going to write about you. Someone else is going to find out about it, right? So you slowly but surely get your name exposed.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think the other thing too is you want, you know, if you're not having fun, then, you know, you're going to lose that kid. And I think that's the sad part of the story, right? Part of your responsibility as a leader, as a coach, and, you know, is to, you know, get the best out of every kid, right? You know, when you evaluate great leaders, it's their ability to get everyone in their care to be the best that they can be. And so that same should apply to Little League or soccer or any other sport that you're coaching. So, you know, but I think it's exciting times because kids are getting out for the first time and they're wearing uniforms and they're putting their cleats on. So, you know, enjoy that part of it, right? Because someday, as you know, you know what, that last game when you can't tighten your skates anymore, you're not putting your baseball uniform on, or, you know, you're not playing soccer anymore. I mean, you wish you could do that stuff again. So don't make it a job for these kids. Have some fun.
That's right. Have fun, and I had very fun with you. And listen, as we say in hockey, everyone ends up in men's league.
That's right.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I had a great time with you, Rocky Romanella. My name is Rocky Romanella. That's right. You had 2 Rocky Romanellas tonight on the Rome Show. We were filling in for Andrew tonight. Hopefully he says we did a great job. You can find us. You can find the Rome Show on 12 Ounce Sports, Zingo TV 761, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, live. Anywhere that you listen to the podcast, that'll be posted at some point later this week. Thanks for rocking with us. Have a great night.